You know how it is at the start of a new year? It feels like a moment to look ahead. But for Pakistan, looking forward means facing a set of problems that are, well, they're not new. Today, we're digging into an analysis from the newspaper Dawn that argues the country has hit a really critical crossroads.
So, to really set the stage, the analysis kicks off on a very specific date, the very first day of 2026. It's a symbolic moment, right? A time to take stock and figure out the path forward. And this quote, it just nails it. The biggest challenges facing the country aren't some big surprise. They're these long-running, persistent issues that everyone knows about, but for whatever reason, they've just been left to fester.
So you might be asking, okay, if the problems are old, what's new? Well, here's the kicker. What's changed is this growing feeling that the old strategy of just managing things, of just putting a bandage on a deep wound, is not going to cut it anymore. That whole approach is becoming totally unaffordable. The cracks are just getting too big to paper over.
This big picture issue really breaks down into three major areas. Think of them as three alarm bells, each one ringing louder and louder, signaling some serious trouble ahead.
First up, and this one is the most urgent, is the return of terrorism. It's not some distant threat anymore. It's a clear and present danger, right here, right now.
And just look at how widespread this has become. We're not talking about one isolated region. We're seeing attacks from border areas like Banu all the way into the heart of the capital, Islamabad. This shows these groups can strike pretty much anywhere, and that's a huge problem.
And this gets to a really core criticism of the country's strategy. So far, the response has been almost all about military force. But the argument here is that force alone is never going to solve this. Without the boring but essential stuff, like good policing, a justice system that actually works, and real political engagement, you're just fighting symptoms, not the disease.
All right, alarm bell number 2. This one is what the source calls a slower burning crisis, but honestly, it's just as dangerous: the economy.
Now, to be fair, there has been some progress. For instance, selling off a big stake in the national airline, that was a huge and pretty rare success. But it feels like the exception that proves the rule. The really hard systemic work, like actually getting more people to pay taxes or fixing other huge money-losing government companies, that stuff just isn't getting done.
So what you get is this cycle, this treadmill that just keeps repeating. The country stumbles from one short-term bailout to the next, often relying on outside help, all while avoiding the tough but absolutely necessary work of real, deep reform.
And that brings us to the third alarm bell. The source uses a really powerful word for this one: corrosive. It's about the steady, creeping erosion of fundamental rights, the space for debate, dissent, and basic freedoms.
I mean, just take a second and look at this list. These aren't just isolated incidents. This has become the standard playbook. Shutting down the internet, cracking down on protests, pressuring journalists. It all adds up to an environment where speaking freely is risky and holding powerful people accountable becomes almost impossible.
And here's the great irony in all this. The state uses these tools to try and silence criticism and create order. But, as the source argues, the actual result is the exact opposite. You get less accountability, which you need for good government, and you get this massive growing gap of mistrust between the people and the state. It actually makes the country less stable in the long run.
Okay, so we've laid out these three huge crises: security, the economy, and civil rights. But here's the key takeaway from the analysis. They're not three separate problems. They're all symptoms of the exact same underlying issue. This quote right here is the absolute heart of the entire argument. It's the difference between kicking a can down the road and actually stopping, picking it up, and dealing with it. The state has become an expert at crisis management, at containment, but it seems to have forgotten how to actually solve problems at their root.
And you can practically set your watch to this flawed playbook. It's a predictable cycle. Step 1, a crisis pops up, so you slop a temporary fix on it. Step 2, use force and control to quiet things down. Step 3, you totally ignore what caused the problem in the first place. And the result? Of course, the crisis comes roaring back, sometimes even worse than before.
So, if management is the problem, what's the solution? While the editorial argues for a complete, fundamental shift in thinking,
The answer isn't a new personality who can wave a magic wand. It's the slow, hard, and sometimes boring work of building up the core institutions of the state so they can actually do their jobs the way they're supposed to.
And this is what that actually looks like. It means Parliament becomes a place for real, tough debate, not just a rubber stamp. It means the courts apply the law the same way to everyone, no matter who they are. It means the rules of the economy are clear and predictable. And crucially, it means that security policy is guided by civilians, not by a constant state of emergency.
When you pull back and look at everything we've talked about, it all boils down to one fundamental choice for the country.
And this final line just says it all. The path of control, of just managing problems and using force, has been tried over and over and over again. The argument is simple. It's time to try something else. It's time to try real governance, built on strong institutions and the trust of the people.
So, that's the big question on the table, the one that hangs over everything else. Will the state keep going down that familiar, well-worn path of control, or will it finally choose the harder, but maybe more rewarding, path of governance based on consent? The answer is going to define Pakistan's future.